Okay, let's move on then. One of the key presentations we have every year that's the most fun is the city auditor who is in. Let's give her a round of applause.
But I'm going to come down here because this is where the light is.
All right.
I'm afraid I brought, well, we can just pass them down. I brought show and telling. I don't know if maybe everybody can pull out your flashlights. So maybe we can pass these down.
Wow, thank you for having.
Oh, yeah. We got a few more if I do.
I figured you'd heard enough from me at the last meeting, so I got it from her. I'll email her.
So it really is much lighter down here than it is. It's this thing. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sharon Erickson. I'm the city auditor. I've been city auditor now for 9 years. Before that, I came to work for the city in 1989, so I've been around for a while. I worked my way up in the auditor's office. I left for a few years and went to another jurisdiction which has more money than San Jose does. No, just kidding. And then came back to San Jose because San Jose faces a lot of challenges, and it's a terrific place to work as an employee. I think I can speak for almost all of the employees, especially the police department today, but that we're just really grateful to be able to work for all of you. You know, it really is a tremendous honor to have the trust of the taxpayers in this city who fund us to do this kind of work. So what I thought I'd do tonight is just give you, I brought along a few of our audit reports and also the I Love My Auditor stickers.
I do love my auditor.
But I thought what we could do is start out a couple of ways. So one thing is, I know that I passed around our services report. So this is the annual report that my office does. It's the green report you've got. It's green because it matches the budget document of the city. So the city has kind of a color-coded system. Last year it was lime green. So, because what this report tells you is at the beginning of the fiscal year, the city council adopts the budget, and then this report is meant to tell you, basically, cut to the quick, what you got for your money. So it tells you that. So it tells you how many police calls we responded to, how many animal service calls, how many animals got adopted out of the animal shelter, kind of all those basics. It also goes back usually 10 years. Because I figure the problem is if I tell you we filled 10,000 potholes, you're like, is that good or bad? So what we do is we show you the trends over time. So I did think, but I assumed that we would have lights on, that we could go through this report a little bit. And I highlighted some of the things that Pete told me that you were particularly interested in or working on this year. So we do this report, not every jurisdiction, I should say, has a city auditor, and not all of them do this kind of report, but I just feel it's part of my mission to not only check up on where everybody's spending the money, but also to check up on what services are being delivered. And I think the most important thing is to be accountable to the public, and so that's why we issue this kind of public report. And we don't audit every number in this report, but we compile the report for you so that we believe it is a fair and accurate representation of the services you get for your tax dollars. So that's the purpose of this. Now, one other thing I should say before I get into it is, and if you've heard me talk before, I always use this. If I give everybody, it used to be 20 bucks. But it's probably a lot more than that. If I give you all 60 bucks to go buy a pair of shoes, you're all going to come back with a different kind of shoe. Because we each think different things are important. And I think government and our local government is trying to weigh all those priorities. You know, I may come back with red shoes, somebody else may come back with athletic shoes, somebody else is coming back with dress shoes, and somebody else needs boots. And we're trying to weigh all those priorities and deliver services in a way that's fair and equitable to all of our residents. So with that in mind, there's a lot of information in here. We've tried to organize it so you can find what you want to see. It's not meant to be read cover to cover, except by people like me. So the very first part of this report, and I hope you can see a little bit, and maybe we'll get the lights on, is just what I call the transmittal letter. So that's the summary of what we found about city services, and you may want to read that at some point. But I want to walk you through the major sections. So the first part of the report, and I'm on, oh gosh, we're not going to be able to see these, are we? So I'm on page 14, and it looks like this. What this is showing, oh yes, I have a spotlight. What this is showing you is median household income. It's showing you basic statistics about the city of San Jose. So one of the questions I always ask is, what are we trying to do and who are we trying to do it for? So we start out this report by looking at the demographics of San Jose. How much has the population grown? How many languages are we speaking? What's the age range of the people in our community? And then this year we've always tracked median income, but this year we started tracking income inequality. So we're trying to figure out how to portray that the right way. But the idea is our median income is, I think, $91,000 a year. But we also know that 20% of San Jose's population households are living on less than $35,000. Wow. So we're trying to get at that kind of, because we're trying to serve all these people. And so that's where it can get complicated.
When you said median income, then you meant a family's median income?
Yeah,
or
family median income. So so median means half of people are above that and half of families are above that and half of families are below that. But we've got 20% who are less than 35,000. So we've got a really diverse population we're trying to serve. Now, the next section of the report, it starts on page 17, is the resident survey. I should have brought my slide deck because I could have shown that. You could have seen it. We could have had popcorn.
I think just in case it matters, I think your document is online, so we could see it online.
It's also online, yeah. So you can go to it online, or if there are parts of this that you remember later when you're home and the lights are on, hopefully you can go back and find them.
I think one was thinking that maybe
Wait. Let's hold questions. Sharon's only got 30 minutes for the presentation. We're going to follow that up with 15 Q&A. Her presentation last year was 29 minutes.
the comment was we might be able to see it displayed.
No, not that. All righty there.
All right. That's good enough.
Okay, it's much better than it was. Okay, on page 18 and 19 begins the summary of the resident survey results. So every year as part of this report, we participate in a national survey. It's a survey of residents across the country. We get particular results for San Jose, and then we can compare them to other jurisdictions. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things here. One thing on page 18, it gives you the ranking of community characteristics. So one of the things I understood you were interested in was quality of life statistics. This gives you some of those rankings here. So if you want to, at your leisure, go back to page 18. Page 19, this is one of the graphics in the kind of center of the page on page 19 that we pointed out to the city council. So this is where we're seeing a real drop in some of the trends in people's ratings, both of the community and of services. So that's in the center on page 19. So that's where you see things dropping like cleanliness of San Jose. Of course, affordable quality housing keeps just dropping. Overall appearance of San Jose dropped. Overall ease of travel dropped. So, but on the other hand, what we said is, although it's dropped, the number of people who plan to remain in San Jose for the next 5 years is still around 69%. And the majority of people would recommend San Jose to anyone who wanted to live here. So that section is about kind of quality of life. And then the next couple of pages gives you quality of government services. And I did want to point out there, the highest rated service at 75% good or excellent was fire. The lowest rated service this year, we keep vying for the bottom, was street repair. Only 12% of residents said street repair was good or excellent. I'll skip through some of these, but this section you may be interested in. We start with the demographics of San Jose, and then what do people think? And then you'll see a lot of this goes through every chapter in the report. So the next section of the report, last year we started putting out what we called a financial condition report. So there are a number of jurisdictions in California that have gone bankrupt. And because of that, the state controller is starting to try to rank cities. So we picked out one of those sets of metrics and looked at it for San Jose's financial condition. So that begins on page 23. We can talk about that some more if you want to. Basically what we found is San Jose's physical assets continue to deteriorate. So we're using up more of our assets, but by that I mean streets, parks, buildings. We're using up more of that than we're putting into it. We're not investing in our infrastructure the way we should. You know, if we were a regular business, we'd be worried about our balance sheet, and that's where this stuff is hitting the city's balance sheet. So this gives you some of those statistics. San Jose has less money to spend per resident than most other jurisdictions. A lot of those statistics are in this section. So it is one of those things where when you're wondering, when the budget numbers start coming out, and you're wondering how that compares to prior years, you may want to go to this section. So again, this section, this report is going to give you history. So when people propose a budget, it's going to be on a go-forward basis. This one looks back to tell you what you got over the previous 10 years. Makes sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the report just goes through chapter by chapter by, well, it starts with the budget and staffing, I'm sorry. So I also understood that you were interested in staffing. So on page 38 of the report, there are a couple more copies if you want. There are a couple down there in the middle of the table if anybody else needs one. I'm sorry, because it kind of requires you to have one in your hand, but they are online. This shows you here in this section kind of our staffing levels. So as everybody knows, the city went through a period of layoffs. You can see that in the graphic on the upper right-hand corner of page 38. You can see those blue bars, that's when we were laying people off. You can see the total number of full-time positions over the last 10 years. And you can see that over the last 10 years, we're still 15% below where we were 10 years ago in terms of authorized positions. Now this is authorized positions, and as you know, if you read the newspaper, we've got 800 vacancies. So right now, we're authorized for a total of 5,900 employees. But 800 of those positions are vacant, so we're down to 5,100 full-time equivalent employees. So that means if I'm part-time and you're part-time, together we make one. Right? You can see here on the page 39, sorry, you can see San Jose has a lot fewer staff per resident than other major California jurisdictions. You can also see how the costs have risen for staff. We're actually paying less or about the same now in cash compensation to employees. You can see, so it's this one on page 39 on the right-hand side. It shows you that the bulk of that that money now is going towards benefit costs. So that's the kind of staffing and overall. So that's all the background, and then the rest of the report starts with chapter by chapter. So the first chapter is the airport, and we just go through each service that way. So I'm just going to go through really briefly. you know, for example, for the airport, so I'm looking at page 43. You can see there's, and again, remember the shoe example? Everybody cares about different stuff. So we're trying to give you the numbers and you can decide what's important. There's a chart kind of in the bottom of that page where it shows you passenger flights. So this is passenger flights per day, takeoff and landings. So an airport makes its money when people fly through the airport. And you can see those takeoffs and landings have dropped significantly. So we do have ongoing challenges with the airport. They also rebuilt the airport and borrowed a lot of money to do it. So I and other people remain concerned about how we're going to be able to pay off that debt if we can't build up passenger traffic. So fly San Jose, right? But there are a number of factors, and just so you know, the airport is also refinancing their debt so that they can make it through. The next chapter is the city auditor, city attorney, city auditor, city clerk. I know we're really interesting, but I'm going to skip through those. They're there if you want to see them, so we include every city department. I did want to point out one graphic on page 55, which is, you know, this thing you keep hearing about San Jose has less money than other jurisdictions. So page 55, the main graphic there shows you, you can see there's San Jose third up from the bottom. We get about $780 per resident in tax revenue. That includes sales tax, property tax, hotel tax, utility taxes, and other taxes. And you can see somebody up on, you know, at the top of that, other jurisdictions where we're getting like $780, other jurisdictions are, gosh, what is Palo Alto? $1,600 per resident. So they have double the money that we have to spend on a population that's probably wealthier, better off. More able to go to a health club if they need to, if they don't have a community center. So that's economic development. I'm just going to keep flashing through. So the next one I wanted to point out is we do have a chapter on environmental services. So that's where you're going to find, it's you know, starting on page 60 or so. That's where you're going to see comparisons of our monthly garbage rates, stormwater rates, sewer rates. You'll see those compared to other jurisdictions, and you'll see how much they've gone up, because they all go up over the last 10 years or so. One thing I like to point out is on page 61, on the garbage page, what I call the garbage page, you can see that San Jose residents are actually recycling more tonnage of of waste than we're landfilling. So you can see that graphic moving. It used to be about equal. So in the old days, we landfilled more trash than we recycled. Then it got to be about even, and now the lines are really moving apart. So San Jose residents are doing a terrific job at recycling. I'll say that the problem with recycling is figuring out how to sell the recyclables. So that continues to be an issue for the city, but San Jose residents are doing their share.
Does it cost us more to recycle because of that?
Yeah, it costs to recycle. So it's not free to recycle, so it's built into your garbage rate. Yeah. So as the prices go down that the haulers can get for those recyclables when they sell them, that becomes problematic. They're making less money on selling the good stuff we put in the bin. So it is likely that they will come back. And I'm worried with everything that's going on with international markets. And international borders, what's going to happen to those kind of things? Because, for example, China put up kind of a green fence that I think the two countries were negotiating about. So they're taking a lot less of kind of our dirty recyclables than they used to. So that becomes our problem at some point, in the sense that those costs, staff will negotiate on your behalf to keep those rates down, but any increase in rates ultimately gets passed on to you.
This is one of our banes.
Please, Nick, let her finish her presentation, because I can write down questions and we'll get them at the end.
Okay.
Sorry, Sharon.
No, I keep wanting to talk to you too. I keep breaking all the rules. Okay, Fire department's the next chapter. So this is one of the chapters where it kind of, so this begins on page 69. So there's a few things in here I wanted to point out. So, you know, the fire department responds to last year they responded to 87,000 incidents, including 69,000 priority 1 calls. So if you hear lights, priority 1 means lights and sirens. So the vast majority of those calls are lights and sirens. I did want to point out last year there were 8 civilian fire deaths. That compares to fire deaths on average of about 5. Now it's really low, but I figure any fire death is a bad thing. And it signals to me that people didn't have smoke detectors. Because smoke detectors should get, the fire department can't get there in time to save all property, but gosh golly, we've got to be able to save people. So, you know, I have open audit recommendations with the fire department because we've audited the fire prevention programs. And, you know, we're hoping that they can target the zip codes where fire deaths are happening. They're happening in multifamily dwellings in certain zip codes, and that's where we can get out smoke detectors. We also include maps in this report so that you can pinpoint, because service does vary across the city. So response times vary, the number of incidents per fire station varies. So this one is responses by fire station. It's on page 72. If you want to know what the response times are from your local fire station, that's shown on page 73. The housing department is the next chapter. It starts on page 75. So a lot of what the housing department is doing is passing on money from its pass-through money, pass-through federal money, pass-through other monies to fund services. One thing I did want to point out is on page 77, up at the top, you can see this is the resident survey. % of residents rating housing opportunities excellent or good, which is kind of the way survey consultants measure this stuff. It's now fallen to from 19% 5 years ago or 6 years ago to 5% last year. So it just continues to fall. It continues to be a concern of residents. So this is a resident survey, statistical survey of residents in the city of San Jose. By the way, we pushed it out over Nextdoor this year. Did any of you see that survey by any chance? No? Okay. Never mind. If you did, you could see it in here. And then I did want to point out, because I know you're interested in homeless issues. So page 78 shows you some of these key facts. So it shows you on the top right. Some of the key facts are, you know, the average monthly rent in San Jose at the time we did the report was $2,500 a month. 53% of renters their gross rent was 30% or more of their household income, which is kind of the standard for where it should be. The median house price in San Jose, these numbers are a little bit old at this point, it was only $920,000. Now I think it's $1 million. And you can see the graphics over time for monthly rent and then the median single-family home price. So you can see the dip during the housing crisis, and then you can see it starting to track back up. And then I did want to point out down on the bottom right-hand corner, so this is on page 78, this is the point-in-time homeless count. So this goes back, I believe it's 10 years, maybe 11. So as far back as we had the data available. So it shows you that point-in-time count is staying around 4,000. And then the bottom line in that graphic shows you how many people the city was able to assist into housing. So it is an ongoing issue. The next couple of chapters are human resources, the infinite police auditor, the IT department. So the city of San Jose spends very little in comparison to other jurisdictions on our information technology resources. So when we tell you, if you ask us a question, we say, I gotta go count that. A lot of times people mean they gotta go count it by hand, and they're probably not lying to you. So the next chapter was the library. So that begins on page 87. I just wanted to point out it's here. So I think you folks who are interested in the library, go through this chapter. It provides you statistics comparing San Jose to other jurisdictions. I'm proud to say that we're now back up to 6 days a week, a library service. We still don't have any library except Maine open on Sundays. But we're getting back up to those library hours that we had before we had to cut budgets. That also gives you kind of weekly, weekly circulation by branch on a map, so you can also pinpoint your branch down below or on the map, and you can look at the circulation there. The next chapter, so it begins on page 93 and 94, is Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. So to use this report, we kind of got to know what department things are in, but we tried to make it easy, and it just seemed easier to put it alphabetically by department. So I know that you've got some concerns about park rangers, and I don't think we really have anything in here about parks in terms of park rangers, but I did want to point out, I also know, well, let me say a couple of things here. On page 96, there's some of the resident survey results, and it shows you about 43% of San Jose residents used one of our recreation centers at least once during the last year. 57% are rating them good or excellent. Now, I think they're using the 10 hub centers that have been rebuilt. So the majority of people are finding those are in good shape. I did want to point out, it showed on page 97 of the report, during the decade when we've been cutting services, the city actually has, I'll get this number wrong, 51 community centers, but we're only operating 12 of those. So the rest are being operated by other organizations. So the neighborhood community center that you have in your neighborhood may be operated by another organization. Sometimes they are required to provide more public service, and some of them are pretty much, they're at least providing some service to somebody in those buildings. And then I know that you in the past have been interested in graffiti, so there's some graffiti statistics on page 98. And I wanted to let you know there are also graffiti statistics coming out over the next few weeks to the city council meetings. So there'll be more information about graffiti. One of the things is that 28% of residents rated graffiti removal good or excellent, which is actually pretty good for a city our size. So I think we found in general people are very happy with the graffiti removal contractor that the city has. I know I run into them all the time when I'm walking along Guadalupe River. So there are some statistics in here about graffiti. And more information is coming out of the city at least annually on graffiti abatement. Planning, building, and code enforcement is an issue that a lot of people run into. We actually, how am I doing on time?
5 more minutes.
Okay, we will go fast. We actually did an audit on residential building permits, so we wanted to see what the customer service was like for residents who may live far away from City Hall but have to come repeatedly to City Hall. If you want more information about that, that report is up on our website. There are
Quick
a lot
question.
of, yeah.
Pete, does a 5-minute include time for our questions, or do we
No.
get questions after the 5
30
minutes?
minutes for Sharon's presentation, 15 for Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So there also is information on code enforcement, which I know is an interest of yours or has been in the past, on page 101. So you can see 15% of residents rated code enforcement good or excellent. There's timeliness statistics with the development center. You can find those it's on page 103. You can see the timeliness, so we are not hitting timeliness targets for processing permits, inspections, and a lot of those issues. Now that's a fee recovery service, but they dramatically reduced their staff when building activity kind of stopped in the valley after the housing crash. Everything is ramping up. Building is booming, we've got some of the statistics in here about millions of dollars built and so on. So if you have more interest there, look there. And then I just want to go through pretty quickly. Police department, I know is usually of interest to people. That chapter starts on page 105. I know Keith had said that you were interested in sworn, non-sworn. So the department is increasing the number of non-sworn or civilian staff. You can see the statistics on their authorized staffing on page 106, kind of on the bottom. So the light blue is civilian, the dark blue is sworn. So they're moving those statistics up as we speak. So primarily in the past, those were dispatchers. So police dispatchers are considered civilian. They are now ramping up with the community service officers and others. I've been pushing hard. If we don't have enough cops, let's make sure we have enough backup, civilian backup for them, so that they're not having to fill out paperwork. And then there is a breakdown of calls for service and average emergency call times. The department has been pretty good at holding down the emergency response times. They are doing less well at the response times for the lower priority calls, as you well know. The dispatch center, that's on page 107. Dispatch center is also seeing an increase in emergency call answering times, which I know has caught a lot of our attention. And again, you can see the statistics by police district, and then we give you a map of those. Let's see, then there is all the information towards the back of that chapter, page 110 and 111 on residents' feelings of safety. So let me emphasize, San Jose is actually an extraordinarily safe city for the size that we are. It doesn't mean that any crime is unimportant, but I think perceptions of crime and perceptions of safety are as equally important as the actual, well, maybe not equally. I think I care more about people who are actually victims of crime, so let me take that back. But I mean, the rate of crime is one thing, but it's also important that people feel safe. So we track those statistics here. I'm happy to answer any questions about those, or the information is here for you to look at. And again, we track this stuff going backwards so you can judge, is it getting better or worse? We did see some significant drops this year in the survey results in terms of feelings of safety, and the percent of respondents rating police services good or excellent fell to 29%. But I told the chief, I mean, everybody knows that police service is down because you don't have enough people. Doesn't necessarily mean you aren't doing a good job with what you got. But so keep in mind, there's a lot of ways to read statistics. We do have a chapter on public works. So they're the folks who are building some of these projects that you may be interested in. I think I'll leave it at that. The information is there. There is a chapter, I have to brag about our Animal Services Center. I'm sorry. So page 118 in the bottom right-hand corner, this is the percent adopted, rescued, returned to owner, or transferred, which is their way of saying we didn't kill the animals. And you can see dogs and cats. So dogs have always had a real high level. They're so cute. Everybody wants to adopt them. And cats breed, and everybody always has these real low rates for returning cats. But look what's happened in San Jose, and I don't see this in any other jurisdiction, so I just have to brag. This is a case where city staff decided they were going to do better. And so they ramped up their spay and neuter program. They're running returning cats out to the wild instead of just killing them. Yes. And so you see these numbers going up, so they're almost equivalent to where the dogs are. And it's just kind of astonishing because nobody else has been able to do that in the statistics I've seen. Some people brag about it, but it's one of those kind of little services that gets, in this, what is this report? It's 140 pages. But each one of these numbers can represent a significant effort on the part of a few city staff and the residents who help them, because Animal Services relies heavily on volunteers, to actually get something done that we can all be proud of. Next chapter was retirement services. If you have questions about retirement services and why our retirement costs are high, you may want to look at this chapter. It shows you we've got a mature pension plan and have got ongoing issues with how to fund pensions. And then transportation is the last chapter in the report. I want to point out that even that we've always put a map in the report, or we've started doing this. So you can, and it's online. You can go on my website, City Auditor website, or on the Department of Transportation website. You can actually scroll in and see the rating of your street. And it shows you, we originally produced these maps. We wanted to make sure that service was distributed equitably around the city. And now they're up there so anybody can go in and you can pull up the information on the condition of your street. I want to warn you, there's not a lot of money to fix that condition right now. But that's the way it is. Let's see, I think, oh, one other one I wanted to point out, and this is another one where I just want to brag a little bit on city staff. Page 129, because normally my job is telling them what they do wrong, right? So I spend all day, every day, telling people what they did wrong. But in this case, page 129, up in the middle, sewer overflows. So this is something we do not want to happen. We don't want to know about it. We don't. But look what they've done. I mean, those are the number of sewer main stoppages. And that line is moving. It's just coming down. And what they did was the staff figured out where they started tracking stoppages. They decided it was their mission to just get rid of these things. Figured out where they were. They went in. They're cleaning those lines. And they're measuring their success by how many stoppages were there. And those numbers have come down. So again, you know, I spend all day, every day, kind of quarreling with people about how well they provided service, and I like to brag on them once in a while. So before I open it up for questions on that, I also want to let you know, and I brought a few of the reports that we do, because I didn't even know if you kind of have any idea on the kind of reports we do. So I brought one, and maybe we could just kind of pass them around while you're asking questions. This is the one on financial condition. Here's one on the use and coordination of volunteers. We did one on the apartment rent ordinance that just came out a little bit ago. Yesterday, was it? We did a report to the council on mobile devices. We did a report on the city clerk's office and how well minutes are being posted and so on and so forth. So the rest of the year, when we're not doing kind of the services report, this is primarily what we're doing. We're auditing city services. We look at what can be improved, can we be more efficient, more effective, and then we publish those reports publicly with recommendations to improve services. And then I badger staff to get those recommendations implemented so that you know that you've got city staff who are not only pointing out the things that need to be pointed out to be fixed, but also fixing those things on your behalf.
Are these reports online?
Yes, so all our reports are online. And I think with that, maybe
So
we can...
for questions, what we thought we'd do, we only have 15 minutes, but we
We
thought
have
we'd...
less than that, actually. We have 10 now.
We have less than 15 minutes. We have 10 minutes. So we thought we would just quickly go around the table, and each person ask a quick question or pass. I'll pass, and I'll let an alarm go off in about 9 minutes. So if you can keep your questions short, and I'm sorry, if you could keep your answers short. So I pass.
Rich?
How much does it cost for a traffic timer to be fixed? Do you know that?
No, I don't know that.
Budget for that at all? Or?
I don't think they separately budget for that.
Can one of you guys take that action to find out?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next.
I don't have any, except I've seen these about 3 years at least now, and then seeing my expectations. Well, you do an excellent job. Thank you.
I'll pass, thank you.
Yeah, so we get some insight on the perception, residents' perception of safety. I see that it's trending downward, and it's pretty sharp, and it's a really low number, 19%. The city's done a lot of good work with community service officers, and I think we've had a big impact on residential crime. I guess that's under the light blue section in the bottom of left-hand side of the other page, opposing page. Do you think that it's just not sunk in yet, the community service officers' impact from a perceptual standpoint? Or is it because people are just, even though property crimes like burglaries are not sharply up, they're it's a really well-publicized figure. Any insight there as to why we're not seeing a better perception given community service officers?
So right now, we only have, as I understand it, like one community service officer per district at a time. So we're not gonna see dramatic changes but they're increasing the number. So the first year, I think there were 28. The second year, they added like another 28. I mean, I think they keep planning to keep adding. And as they add, and we have a larger volume who are out in the districts, I think we'll begin to see a difference. So let me put it that way. I think publicity about crime, I mean, in a city like San Jose, crime is news. And so that's what we hear about. And we forget that we hear about it because it's news. So I think that impacts our news outlets are covering a lot of crime news. I think the fact that we don't have staff following up on burglaries, on auto thefts, those things reflect, people feel less safe. When my house got burglarized, I had a cop come out right away, and it made me feel much more safe. If you don't have a cop come out, you don't regain that feeling of safety as quickly as I did. So I think that has a lot to do with our staffing.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Commissioner Estrada.
So sales tax, without increasing the sales tax rate, this is very important, not talking about increasing the sales tax rate, what do you think is the best thing the city can do to generate more sales tax revenue? And what's one thing that the city should stop doing because it inhibits it?
Great question.
Okay.
Not real detailed,
Right,
I'm just looking
I
for your
would
wisdom.
probably, yeah, 30 seconds. So I would talk to the Office of Economic Development and talk to them about that. I think the city has seen some drops in what we call business-to-business sales tax. So business generates a lot of sales tax. So if they're selling directly from their facility, if they're manufacturing and selling goods, then we're going to see more sales tax. So bringing back manufacturing to San Jose is important. I could tell you all to go, spend more money, but I think I can tell you to spend it in San Jose. We do think that there is some leakage of people leaving San Jose going other places. So you can go to Morgan Hill and buy a car, but then Morgan Hill's going to get those sales tax dollars. And if it's just you, it's not a problem. If it's your whole neighborhood, it begins to be a problem. So I think you'll see focus on Buy San Jose, and then focus on those kind of businesses and industries that not only generate jobs and income for everybody, but also business-to-business sales tax.
So spending in San Jose.
Juan.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I pass. Just one quick comment. I relate the perception on safety to awareness from things like Nextdoor, where there's just a whole lot more awareness of things that are going on in the neighborhood. But this report is incredible. It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Commissioner Semitic?
John Semitic, District 4. Comments about everything here was very important. I think you're to be commended for the report, the breadth and the demographics of the city. Being a neighborhoods commission, one of the things that hits homes for me is the perception of citizens or residents. And the chart on page number 21 is glaring to me. Citywide trust or public trust. And then you have the code violations on 111 and the public trust of the police department. And we all know about negativity in the press. My specific question to you is on the chart on page 21, it cites the National Citizens Survey report. And for a size of San Jose, we're less than 5% in having the best interest of the community. Government does not have resident involvement. And I hear these things constantly, the residents I talk to. My question to you is, do we have access to this National Citizens Survey to talk to cities, small or large, that are higher than 4 or 5%? That San Jose is in many of these categories, that maybe we can learn lessons learned? Because one of the things I feel, and I'm only speaking on behalf of myself and the residents I talk to, they don't feel engaged with the city at any level. And I think that's one of the things the commission is talking about. How do we engage with the residents so that there's a two-way communication? So my specific question to you is, do we have access to this National Citizen Survey?
So the results for the City of San Jose are posted online on my website. So if you go to the services report, so it's sanjoseca.gov/auditor. If you go to the page that the services report, the results and all of the consultants' reports are right there. They don't tell us who scored higher or lower than us, but they do benchmark us to other cities. They also list what cities, and I've thought about doing this, and I was just taking a note, because I've thought about, should we just start calling some of these cities? I think we can pay the consultant more money and they would do it for us, but we could just start calling some of these cities to find out. But yeah, they've told us in general that larger cities will score lower on these types of measures. I also personally think it's in part because we're so spread out. So this city is so enormous. I talked about that audit we did of permits. I mean, if you live down way in the south of the city, you have to come back to City Hall like 5 times to get your permit paid and signed off and all that stuff. That's a lot of mileage. And
Anyway,
I think
if you need
just,
any volunteers, sign me up. 'Cause we need some lessons learned here, because this chart on page 21 is
yeah,
pitiful.
it struck me too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sandoval.
Yes, the element of the city police department, I attended their meeting, and it was a very gratified meeting, where they're adding more police officers. I believe the number is 37. And of course, also, San Jose Police Department approved the new increase in wages, where now they're gonna attract more recruits and in order to fill our positions in the department. That's very gratifying to hear, because we need safety in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Berrigan.
With 800 vacancies open in the city, why is there a restriction when it comes to hiring? And is that even true?
Yeah, so there are 800 vacancies, and right now, I think somebody told me we've got about 25 or 30 posted on the website. 25? And I think there's another, 20 or so listed as coming soon. I'm like, okay. So keep in mind, if we post a police officer position, that's actually somewhere close to 200 for one. So you post police officer, but it's actually 200 positions. So it isn't quite as bad as we. The problem is just freeing up. When you get that far behind, so I've been ranting about this for a while. We did an audit a while back of employee hiring. When you get that far behind, you have to stop doing your work to interview people. And so the problem is getting the time, setting aside the time. So is it better for me, if I'm the IT person, is it better for me to answer an IT fix-it call or to go hire 2 people to help me answer those calls? And I think staff are trying to juggle that. Right now, there is a effort on the city's part. They're implementing a, 200 within 100 days?
300.
300 within 100 days. So I'm like, okay. But they're gonna go on a massive kind of blitz to try and hire, and then they'll have enough people to do the work to free up the people to hire the rest of the people. Part of it in the police department is we have very high standards. I've also said that we need to be hiring more people at the entry level, so that we don't require people to have experience to come work for the city, and we'll train them up. I mean, that they'll stay here because it's a good place to work.
Okay.
And you've got San Jose State right next door.
Right.
Commissioner Carter.
Pass.
So you kind of answered my question. You said you've already done a human resources study. I'd like to review it because time and time again, as I've been working on the public safety ad hoc committee and on the fireworks committee and then just reviewing everything else, and when we went to the budget games, my answer to most of the problems that could solve a lot of our problems was if we streamline our HR process and possibly either hire. I know that we have a lot of part-time positions. Possibly that also might be a problem too, because a lot of people won't, where we live in Silicon Valley, in San Jose, it's not affordable to have a part-time position. So I'd like to read that report. I think that if we were to streamline it or maybe pull another report, how would we go about requesting that? Or how can we in the commission assist in in bringing some light, because I think that if HR is well equipped and knowledgeable and streamlines the process where we're able to not only maintain the employees that we currently have, and then we have turnover and workman's comp and LOA and maternity leave and whatnot. We need to make sure we take care of the people we have so they don't leave, and also attract the people that we want to hire, and do it in a timely manner, because one of the things that we talked about is by the time they submit their application online for the position and they get called back, they've already been hired somewhere else. So we're losing a lot of great qualified candidates that are interested, but the process is just too tedious and too long, and again, not attractive.
Yeah, so two things on that. So our reports are online. So we did an audit of employee hiring. So it's employee hiring, it's on our website. We also did one of police hiring. It's also on our website. So there are some ways, I think, that we can streamline those processes. Keep in mind, we're in a unionized environment and we have civil service rules. So we're working within those constraints. But my point is, when you're in a crisis, maybe you get everybody to agree to suspend some of those rules. Let's get some people in here. If they don't work out, now I'm kind of excluding cops from that because we give them guns. But for the rest of us, I mean, let's go ahead and get some hiring done, and maybe we have to streamline rules, at least in the short term. That'd also give us some experience to see how those streamlined rules work. Because sometimes we get bound up in the legal red tape and forget what it's all about, and we're busy following the rules.
Well, it's more the administrative part,
We'll
because
move on to Olivia.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about it then in a minute.
Thanks, Commissioner Parrish.
I will mention this to you because I've mentioned it to the mayor, but I think a money-saving thing for us could be to move toward having more roundabouts. My understanding is a street light costs about $150,000, and we have many intersections where a roundabout would be a smoother transition and a safer transition. People don't get killed in roundabouts like they do at stoplights. People don't run. You can't run a roundabout, so that would result in cleaner air and less traffic deaths, and lower costs.
Yes.
And second, we have a neighborhood association, and we have cracks in our streets that, a crack in the asphalt lets the water in and it starts destroying the pavement. We're happy to volunteer to keep our street in better shape by putting tar in it, but they said that we can't do that.
Yeah, they say you can't do that for safety concerns. When we did the street pavement audit, I'm sorry, I'm going to take just a minute. We thought we could just give everybody a bucket of colored tar, and everybody could paint in front of their street their own color. And they said no, there's safety concerns with that. So on average, we should be slurry sealing our streets. So that's when they go through and they paint the black stuff all over it. By the way, if you have an asphalt driveway, you should do it every 7 years, because that keeps it.
Yes.
I have an asphalt driveway. Ever since I started doing these audits, I slurry my driveway because my husband won't do it. I slurry my driveway, and I'm the only one on my street that still has the original asphalt driveway. Everybody else has had to replace it, and that's what's going to happen to our streets. I think the concern from the Department of Transportation is having residents out there in the middle of the street painting the cracks. They're worried about it.
Can we move on?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm
We can talk
with
about
you,
it
but
offline.
yeah.
Commissioner Martin.
Thank you so much for this. This is super helpful. Looking at the planning and building code enforcement side of it, one of the things, we've got an ad hoc committee that's looking at, policy 630, and I'm wondering if there's any way we can get maybe a little box saying percentage of complaints against that, or, some kind of a data, because right now we hear complaints, but I don't know how big they are and how much of a problem it really is. And trying to find out what the real issue may or may not be, maybe
Yeah. So
there'll be
we
something.
issued a report on code enforcement, so you might want to look that up. But I think your idea of how do we categorize and prioritize,
Correct.
right now we're just responding to we're doing so few inspections that they are kind of prioritizing to the extent they can. I think the problem is resources, but I will keep that in mind. That's a good
It might be
suggestion.
something different though than code enforcement. This is actually
The complaints.
pre-code enforcement. So when someone gets ready to build a big, huge building, are they notifying the neighbors?
Oh, so not code enforcement, it's
Right,
like
right,
planning.
right, but it comes
Permit.
underneath that
Got it.
category,
Got it.
right?
The
So-
permit stuff, got
Right,
it.
exactly.
Okay.
I think you have a little blurb on what we're
Yeah,
talking about, so.
yeah, no, right.
Cool, thank you.
A couple of people already asked the question, so I'll just go into a different
You
one.
speak up, they can't hear you.
So economic development,
Yeah.
you guys raised the business tax license, so I don't see a separate line for how much you collected on business taxes and how much you project the increase is going to be in that revenue that's going to be coming in.
Sharon, can you repeat the question so they can?
Yeah, so the question was about the business tax that's just increased and what's the projection on the revenue? And Zulma, I don't
40
have that.
million. 40
40?
million in a year, 30 this year because it's only 9 months, 40 million a year. That's what we're gonna be this oversight committee on, whatever that means. But 40 million.
40
That
million?
was business tax, right?
That was just business tax.
That was
That's
business
sales
tax.
tax.
No, this is business tax.
Oh, business.
That-
Oh, that's
too
sales
much.
tax. I'm sorry, that's sales tax.
I'm thinking it's around 12, but I'm sorry, I don't have that number off the top
I'll
of my head.
follow up.
Okay, okay.
Commissioner Colston?
Nothing for me, but we have Ed Rast from the public would like to speak. Can you go fast, Ed? We're really hurting on time.
Sure. What is the process for like a commission or board to make a recommendation for a audit to be done? For instance, Sunshine Reform basically recommended that we take a look at the nonprofit where the funding for that went. We also recommended that we look at the for-profit because both of them have large amounts of money the public is not aware of what it's going for. It's coming out of our taxes. Legally, a charter city can essentially give away money, tax money, and give away property or lease it way under market. And there's no record to speak of, a consolidated record on an annual report. Is that something that the neighborhood commission could ask for?
Yeah, the neighborhood commission could ask me to do an audit of anything. Then what I do is I prioritize all those requests and we come out with an annual audit work plan. We usually do that about the August timeframe. So if you have any suggestions for that, you can send them to me and I can prioritize them. I'm not sure how a commission actually would, you could also do a memo to the rules committee. So the rules committee approves my work plan,
Okay.
but you could also do so yeah, I think probably the easiest way is to send me something and then I'll let you know if I can't accommodate it. And then you would have the out of going around me to the council because the council can direct me to do it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
And yeah, we have an audit of Sunshine Reforms going on right now.
Ed, what were the two things you said? What were the two things?
Listen, we got to stop you guys. We're 10 minutes over. Talk afterwards, please.
Thank you.
Sharon, this is just phenomenal.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Last year, we said 15 minutes, it took 45. This year, we said 45 minutes total. Next year, it'll be at least an hour.
Yeah.
No, it's not you.
No,
Thank
it's not you.
so
It's
much.
not you, it's
So
us.
much.
Excellent, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just wanna highlight